dropped. We're on camera.
We don't really have anything to do.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Southern Shores Council meeting for February the 1st, 2022. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, we need to either approve or amend our agenda. Does anyone want to amend the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to amend the agenda under old business to add an update on the Mid-Currituck Bridge.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this your update?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have an amended and approved agenda. We have a consent agenda which consists of the approval of the minutes from our January meetings on the 4th and the 18th. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Good. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now, something fun and new. The swearing in of our very own, very new council member, Mark Botanic. Sheila, you're on.
Follow you.
Yes, sir. That's what I thought.
Make sure you want to name. I, Mark Botanic, do hereby solemnly swear having been duly appointed council member of the town of Southern Shores, that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties imposed upon me as a council member of the town of Southern Shores by law, so help me God. Thank you.
Well done. So Mark is our newest member. It's customary to provide a moment for a few comments. You can take advantage, or you can wait to the end of the meeting, or whatever
Well,
you so choose.
I'll be happy to do it now.
Great.
That way we don't have to put it on the agenda. How's that? It's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve the town of Southern Shores, its residents and the visitors who come to see us every year. I think there's always a willingness to serve. It has been on my part my whole life, and we're fortunate to live here in Southern Shores. My wife and I are. She'd be here tonight, but she had knee surgery and she's not qualified to drive. And she wasn't going to sit through this meeting. So she's watching it on YouTube. So, but anyway, it's a pleasure and thank you for selecting me. There was 14, I'm told by a lot of my neighbors, magnificent people, which included me, who applied for this job, and every one of them was duly qualified. So I am honored, very honored, and glad to be here, and I'll do my best.
That's
So let's
great.
let's get to work, huh?
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate
Thank
that. Now we'll have our staff reports. We've got first one from our Deputy Town Manager, Planning Director, Wes Haskett.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and members of council.
have a brief report for you all tonight for the month of January. And with respect to permitting, there were 34 permits issued. There were 16 building permits, 2 lot disturbance stormwater management permits, 1 lot disturbance demolition permit, 11 trade permits, and 4 zoning permits. With respect to the Town Planning Board, they will be meeting on February 18th, Tuesday, due to the holiday, at 5 p.m. here at the Pitt Center. At the meeting, they may consider some town code amendments to the solid waste chapter, depending on your discussion at tonight's meeting after you hear from Chairperson Ward. The board will begin discussion of potential amendments to our wireless ordinance with respect to small cell wireless facilities. That's something that you all discussed in a previous meeting as well. And we may begin the first round of 160D zoning text amendments as well. That concludes my report if y'all have any questions at this time.
Anybody have any questions for Wes?
No.
Thanks, Wes.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Our police chief, Chief David Cole.
Morning, Mayor. Yeah, afternoon, Mayor, members of council. January 2022. As you can see, we had a total of 1,730 calls for service. And on that breakdown, the incidents, we had 8. Those were the actual crimes that were reported for a total of 13 offenses. We had 6 criminal arrests. 5 of those were drug related. 1 was driving while intoxicated. 2 were on warrants and 2 were traffic related. Officers conducted 70 traffic stops for January, and they issued 34 written citations and another 46 warning citations. We had 1 ordinance violation, and we had 0 traffic accidents for the month of January. Any questions on that? One more report that literally came across my desk about 2 hours ago, and it's an awareness report. Thank you, Sheila. This is just a graph for it. What this is this is the awareness report from the Federal Bureau of Investigations. This is what you're looking at in 2021. 73 police officers were feloniously killed in the line of duty in the United States. That's a 58.7% increase, significantly higher than the 46 that were killed the year before. Firearms were the most common weapon used, in resulting 61 of the law enforcement officers' deaths were due to a firearm. At least 30 of the 73 officers that were killed were reportedly wearing their ballistic body armor. They were unprovoked attacks, investigating and enforcement activities, and there were ambushes, and they were during pursuits. Those were the primary circumstances in which the officers were killed. Violence against law enforcement officers remains a significant concern due to the 24 of these 73 that attributed to just unprovoked attacks. The officers had no idea what was coming. And then another 8 of those were ambushes, where someone had sat and waited. That is the most reported in 30 years as far as the deaths go, unprovoked and ambushes. And then in 2021, there were another 56 officers that were killed in traffic-related accidents or pedestrian, where they were directing traffic or helping a motorist and they were struck and killed by a motor vehicle. So majority of the accidents, law enforcement deaths, were directly related to the officer being involved in a motor vehicle accident with the 56. This is just an awareness. This is the preliminary statistics. The chances are this is probably going to be a little bit higher, but this just came out. And this is from December to January 31st. Questions, comments?
Is there any breakdown on rural versus urban?
I don't. They have some breakdowns. But it's amazing how many of the things that go into these are not reported. For example, when I checked to see the body armor, most of them were headshots. So the body armor is not going to do you any good. But they don't have a breakdown as far as urban or rural. But I can tell you, just based on what I've seen and heard, it's not just the cities.
No.
It's actually happening more in the little towns. And you can't train for something that someone calls and they're just waiting for it. You just don't have a chance. So that's why it's important for me. And this council has been very supportive because we're trying to get it so that we can eventually have 2 officers on all the time. So any other questions or concerns?
I just have one question,
Yes, ma'am.
since I'm kind of a new kid on the block here. Are the drug-related incidents on an uptick, or are they about the same as they've been?
I would say they're still on an uptick. A lot of ours are coming from traffic stops where the officers are doing a really good job of obtaining, searches and those types of things. And some of them are known people that we've been looking at. Our LPRs, they help us a lot too, as far as some of the known drug dealers and that are coming over the bridge from Elizabeth City and so on.
What's an LPR?
License plate readers.
Okay, all right.
Anything else?
There's one, I was reading this on a paper in the Midwest, that they're seeing an increase in what they call gray death, which is a mixture of any particular opioid drug with fentanyl, and they're seeing it on an increase, and it's pretty devastating. Are we seeing something? What's our status here? I know it's tough to come
It
up
hasn't
with.
leveled out,
No, I know it's not.
We've had our share of overdoses. One, 2 or 3 weeks ago? And they're cutting it with all kinds of stuff, but fentanyl is the worst part. And the problem with fentanyl is the officers can die like that. If they're not careful and they don't realize what they're dealing with, that's why they have to have the rubber gloves and that on. But
Well, that could even happen, somebody innocently picking up a bag, they don't know what's in it.
that's right, absolutely. Just tells you how potent these things are that people would do that, so.
Any other questions for Chief Cole?
Nope.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our fire chief, Edlin Bacher.
Good evening, everybody. I have 2 reports for you tonight. One is the normal monthly report, and then we have a year end for 2021. So the first one for the month of January, fire department responded to 52 calls for service, and pretty simply it breaks down 1 structure fire, 1 chimney fire, 34 EMS calls, 1 search for lost person, 2 electrical problems, 1 public service, 1 unauthorized burning, and 10 fire alarms. And that is, last year we had 36 in January, so kind of up and down. That's the way it goes. Anybody have any questions about that at all? Trying to sit here, right? And then when I get to there, I can use the mouse. I just gotta hold it up. Back.
What a difference in a fire station.
How about if I said? Okay, so this comes with the usual caveats that some of this information is repeated, but since we always seem to have a new council person or woman, man, 1 or 2 sometimes, I just want to make sure we cover the history and how we got to where we're at. So this is us, the fire department. A little bit about our mission, just to provide the best service we can and be as empathetic to our citizens as we can when we're dealing with them. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but a little bit of our logo, things like that. A little bit about our history for those that don't know. It was originally part of the Collington Fire District, and Kitty Hawk broke away from Collington, and then it was finally given to Southern Shores in 1982 with the East Station on East Dogwood. In 1988, the Southern Shores across from the school was built on a piece of land given to us by the Kitty Hawk Land Company, and it served as the headquarters up until 2018 when we constructed a new building, and we've been in there since 2020. So kind of what we do, a little bit of everything, right? Obviously fires, alarms, service calls are really ticking up, and that's just the nature of our population, our demographics. The older people get, the more they rely on our services. And it's just as simple as when people don't know what to do, they call the fire department. We come and make it right. So that's kind of our motto at the station. A little bit of statistics here. So in 2007, and again, this is repeated information, but for those of you who have never seen it, they were only doing 439 calls. Last year in 2021, we did 714, with 60% being medical. So you can see the 60% is pretty steady through there, but it's not touching our all-time high of 2019 of 781, which should actually be 860 because of the hurricane, but we'll leave it at that. In 21, we didn't see a very large loss in fires in Southern Shores, and I would say this is predominantly due to the fire department being able to get there quickly and mitigate the problem. And this is unquestionably a direct result of the station because people are always there, continually spending time there, watching TV. Every Monday night, they all cook dinner there. So just a place for them to go and conjugate. But while they're there, they're on the truck quick and it's out the door. And that was unquestionably a direct result of why East or North Dogwood, the garage fire in North Dogwood, turned out so well. So this is kind of the same report I give monthly, but it's just for the year, 714. And I'm not going to bore you with the whole rundown because it's pretty long, but just to hit some things. We were at 42 structure fires, 386 EMS runs, 52 service calls, which include the wheelchair program, and also things like smoke detectors, fire alarms being malfunctioned, things like that. And then 72 fire alarms for the year. So this next sheet I just like to put up and give you a comparison because this isn't data from the fire department. It's not my data. It's data from Dare County Communication Center. And if you look at it as 719 for the calls, which I don't know how that number's discrepancy. I looked into it, but I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, it's 5 ahead. But the thing I want you to get out of this is we're always 4 or 5 in the county for calls. And you can see we're directly behind Collington and we're way ahead of Duck by 200 calls. Just keep in mind that both of those people have full-time staffs, as well as Kitty Hawk. We're 100 behind Kitty Hawk. They have full-time staffs living in the station career firemen. And you can see the amount of calls we're answering with the volunteer staff. I think we're pretty lucky at this point. So the beginning of this page, not particularly interesting to us for tonight, but on the bottom where it says, and I want to just put this out in front of you, on the bottom where it says lights and siren average response time, dispatch to arrival. So that's from the time the pager goes off till the truck's on scene, pulling the brakes. EMS calls, it's almost 7 minutes, 6:56, and a fire call, it's 12:16. So NFPA 1720, which is regulating the volunteer response times, but it's being rewritten. So this is just as I see it right now as I read it, but 14 minutes would be the norm where we're at 12. So we're under for volunteer organization. Now, what you need to keep in mind is average turnout time, which is the time the pager goes off till the truck calls in service, is only 6 minutes. So what's that telling you, right? We have a long response time because if we have to go out onto the highway or our roads are small, we're going up Dogwood. So we can't do 100 miles an hour up Dogwood, right? You're going 25, 30. So you can see some of our drive time is part of the issue, but that's just the way it works out. I just want to put that in front of you to make you understand that our average response time on a fire ground is 8 minutes, between 8 and 12 minutes. And I've said that all to you many, many times. So just so we're clear. So department training, we train every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 to 10. And every Saturday morning, they have maintenance from 8 to 10. And that's basically checking every piece of apparatus, every piece of equipment on it. So basically, our members can train 8 hours a week, 32 hours a month. That's more than anybody else on the beach and in Currituck County for that. Now, the parade companies are getting paid time to do it on duty, but the volunteer companies typically train twice a month for 3 hours. So we also offer pay for outside training. So if someone wants to go be an EMT or paramedic, NC firefighter 1 and 2, we pay for that. And that gets us those young kids for that block of time when they're training. They may or may not leave us, but for those couple years, we got them to answer calls. So it's kind of a give and take, right? Just a couple more stats here. And again, I'm not going to bore you with all of this, but I thought some of this was pretty interesting because if you look through this, some of you might know some of these guys and may not, but if you look at Paul Caggiano, he's been a member since 1985. He has still 262 hours of training in the year. I mean, you can see the dedication that these guys are given. You look at Lou Brock, who's one of my juniors that just turned 18. He's finally a red tag full-fledged fireman. He's at 145. So Paul's beating him by like 100 hours. So you can see these guys are really putting in the time. You look down to Stephen Hines, he has 285. He started with me as a junior 8 years ago, and now he's a full-time guy in Kitty Hawk. But he stays with me, I'm hopefully out of loyalty, and he likes to help people. But the last guy I thought was really interesting was Maelon White. He has 204 hours of training. And Maelon, if you don't know him, is our treasurer, and he also is in charge of all the NC aquariums, but he also spends half his time in Raleigh. He has a house in Raleigh and a house here. So what kind of time is he given when he's here? He's at the fire department all the time. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to take into consideration when you're thinking about what kind of dedication and these guys getting up in the middle of the night for you. So if we look at the total incidents and total hours, on incidents, they spent 2,231 hours on incidents. They spent 5,055 hours in training, 632 hours for fire prevention and education, which would be the Christmas run. It's the school open house, any of those public education events. And in standby time at the station, that's when crews are there either, watching TV on Sunday or cooking dinner or whatever. They were almost 1,900 hours. And in Rescue 12 time we have a schedule at the station where everyone takes 12 hours of duty time per week. Guys are at 3,255. So a total of 13,079 hours you're getting of free labor. I think that's something really to note and to appreciate because everybody else is paying for it. And I think our guys are very, very dedicated, and we're extremely lucky to have them. So. This is just a little, probably 4-minute movie just to give you a little thing of what we were doing this year, and then we'll finish up when it's over.
Copy. No one is confirmed to be inside the building. Same is now under control.
What's that? Yeah. No, they're not. So just a quick review of the personnel, and this always fluctuates every year. It's a little higher this year. There's a total of 68 active members, of course, full-time chief, deputy chief, 2 part-time admin, 33 male, 2 female, and additional 33 rehab and support. So just a little breakdown of our members. So who we are, believe it or not, the guy second from the left is the IT director in Currituck. He's one of my favorites. That's Logan Steese. And the guy next to him is Stephen Hines. That's the guy. Those guys have both been with me for probably 9 years. So, and they're, we have lawyers, IT professionals, college students, retirees. It's everybody. So just an idea who the community is serving with us. And it just takes a team. So we have our mutual aid partners. We'd help EMS, rehab. We have our junior program. We're back in the schools finally. My 3 juniors just all turned 18, so it was good. We got 3 new guys, and hopefully they'll bring us 3 more. So we'll just keep doing that. And then, of course, this year we had some community outreach partnerships. The latest one with the Coastal Humane Society, which is the one down on the bottom where we had the pictures with the dogs. So for Christmas. So again, this is always with the same caveats, repeating this, but I always take every opportunity to be in my recruiting mode. So to be a firefighter with us, it's 40 hours, and we teach everything you need to know, from cutting people out of cars to PPE, and an ongoing 36 hours every year of training at the very least. But you can see our guys obviously have much more than that. And then weekly vehicle maintenance and respond when you're available, right? Be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. So things to help maintain our system, equip our members with the best PPE apparatus and equipment, which we're very thankful you guys support us graciously. And I'll bore you to death. Ask the mayor or any of these guys.
All right.
So
I won't detain everybody.
that's right. Anybody else?
Chief, you're the bomb. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And can we get copies of some of these statistics?
Can you?
Can we get copies of some of the statistics?
We're interested in the numbers. We would love just,
Sure. Which copies do you want? I mean, I can send you them all. I mean, I don't know if you want this the training and just the run numbers, or.
You can send it all.
Yeah.
We'll sort it out.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send it to Cliff, and he can
police
forward it
too?
out to everybody,
Thank
okay?
you.
yeah, that's perfect.
Can we have the police too? Not you, I mean, we can have the police numbers. I know.
Oh, okay. I can't answer for that one. so
I know.
We're actually working on it, so I couldn't give you comparisons to last year.
Okay.
This month, but you'll have a annual report like
All
I've been providing, hopefully within the next month.
In his defense, I stole that from him.
Okay.
Those are mostly my numbers.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can make the presentations bigger on the screen?
Yeah,
Or is it, or is it me?
No, it's not you.
Okay.
We'll talk to our
All right.
wonderful
Our wonderful IT.
staff about that.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
That's been a challenge.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Need a 55 inch.
Our town manager, Cliff Ogburn.
Right. You switch me over. I wanted to give an update on the beach nourishment project, and I'm going to break this out into 2 different segments here. The first is the proposed 2022 construction services for the Northern Dare County Beach Nourishment Projects. And then the second part is to share an extremely preliminary early schedule for the project and highlight our progress map that we'll start sharing with the public here soon. Whoops. Let's see. You'll remember, well, 3 of you will remember, back in October, you approved an interlocal agreement with Dare County, which included each of the 4 towns in Dare County, and it considered 2 different contracts for this interlocal agreement, one being the construction document, and that was approved recently by Dare County for Weeks Marine to actually do the project. The other was the project management contract, which again is part of that interlocal. That contract will be signed by the county, but it represents each one of the 4 towns in the project. And so as part of this, even though it's under that interlocal, so the county will approve the contract, I still wanted to share with you, because of the expense and the tasks and so forth, this has been accounted for in the project budget ordinance that you've approved, and it's all part of the funding and the financing. But the contract's broken out into 6 parts, and up here at the top, you'll see this is the total amount of this contract, $653,328.75. That's shared by the 4 towns. It's not shared equally, and I'll run through that. Broken out into 6 tasks. The first task is updating of construction drawings in coordination with Division of Coastal Management. Cameron requires at a minimum 3 months before the project starts, we'll have to resurvey the beach. And so that's at a cost of $12,000. Task 2 is one that's ours to be borne solely on our own. We'll have to, as a part of a requirement for the permit, we have to stake out the first line of stable natural vegetation. The reason it's just us is because the other 3 towns did this back in 2017. So this is the first for us. The big part of this obviously is the construction admin services. And I'll break that out here in a minute. But that's $446,000. That's the typical detailed description of the construction sequence, recorded drawings. I'm sorry, let me back up. That's number 4. Number 3, observing the contractor's work, holding bi-weekly meetings, daily project updates, bi-weekly updates to BOEM and the other regulatory agencies, communicating with the public regarding the construction, recommendations for final payment and closeout, the typical admin for a project such as this. The project completion report is where we'll get the kind of the detailed, the grain size, where the cutter head went in the borrow area, where exactly they tracked, the kind of the survey data post-project. The beach maintenance plan, what that is each town has to come up with their own, it's kind of the FEMA, it's the FEMA plan, so that if a declared storm comes, we can get reimbursed for whatever lost sand we have. But we have to have a plan that says how we're going to manage our project. Are we going to re-nourish when we lose 50% of the sand? And where is that 50%? Are we going to re-nourish after X amount of years? So we have to have a plan that we keep in place. The other 3 towns will update theirs. This will be our first one. And then finally, the $100,000 for benthic monitoring. That's just going to be shared by 3 of the towns. Reason being, Kill Devil Hills doesn't share in this because their permit application was the first one issued. Nobody thought to add benthic monitoring as a condition to their permit. When we applied with the other 3, they thought, hey, why don't we add the benthic monitoring? And there's really, as a condition of the permit, we end up having to do it. So our share of this, you'll see in this column, updating the construction drawings, that's the requirement by CAMA. It'll cost us $3,175. Staking out the stable vegetation line will be $3,200. The construction admin service, that is an amount not to exceed the total of $446, and that's kind of a time and material amount. So for us, that won't exceed $158,000. The report that we'll get at the end of this, $17,974. Our maintenance plan is $8,000, and then it costs us $33,000 to measure the fish critters in the surf zone, or the benthic creatures. So our total cost not to exceed for this portion of the project is $224,149.62. So I went through that pretty quick, but I just wanted to share that. And Kitty Hawk and Kildover Hills have seen this. They've signed off on it. Duck will be looking at it tomorrow night. And I think the county is trying to get this under contract at their meeting next week. So I will send this document to you. If you see any red flags or anything, I'll try and get that addressed before it goes before the county. Any questions on that?
How was it allocated again between the towns?
There's each one of these, you'll see some of it's equal, some of it's based on the project side. Ours is the biggest project of the three. That's why
Okay.
if you look under construction admin, we're carrying the majority of that. It's because of the size of our project. Updating the construction drawings, that's a cost that's one of the costs that's shared equally. And then, each one of these, it just kind of depends on the magnitude and the scope of each project. Because this is our, the 2017 project was only 1,500 feet. So this is 4 miles. And so some of these costs are because it's a first go around.
All right.
Cliff, I have a stupid question. The construction admin is capped for the county, but is it capped in the individual town breakdown? So that 224 is not to exceed?
Yes, sir.
Or 158, I mean.
That's correct.
So are they doing all the beaches in Kildover Hills and Kitty Hawk and Duck? Are they doing, I mean, I've seen some lines. I'm just trying to get a scope in my head, and I don't want to belabor this, but.
No. We're the only ones that's doing the full
The
length.
whole town?
The other 3 towns are doing, where's Kitty Hawk doing the full length? I know
Kitty Hawk's
Duck,
whole town.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think Kildover Hills and Duck are just portions of
It. Yeah,
Right.
Duck is, I saw the
It's like
Duck one. Okay.
Archdale Street and Kildover Hills north to us, and then it skips a little bit and picks up part of Duck.
Okay,
I think Duck is north of the pier.
Yep.
okay.
Those reports that you referred to, is all the reporting channeled through the county, then back to the town, or how does that work?
No, those reports will be individual.
Okay,
So really the contract for all of this is administered by the county, but we'll all kind of have our separate deliverable, so
Okay.
to speak. We'll
Okay.
have our own completion report. We'll have our own maintenance plan. We'll have our own benthic monitoring report. So all that will come directly to us.
and then while our project is ongoing, the daily updates, all that will go to us or to the county and then us?
It's both, but it's
Okay.
going to be up to us to get that information out accurately and up to date to the public.
Okay,
And that is a perfect segue into what I'm going to show you next.
okay.
Let's see. This, the project, this is a map, kind of the beginning of what we're going to show to the public. And I can say that this is so early on in the project that what I'm standing here, I don't have a whole lot of faith and confidence that we're going to start the project in accordance with the dates I'm about to give you, but that because so much can change between now and that time, especially with weather and their other projects, weeks projects and so forth. But this is what we're told right now. The plan is to initially use 2 dredges, RN Weeks and the Lindholm, to begin work. They're going to start in Kitty Hawk and they'll move right into Kildover Hills. Sometime in June, they expect the largest of their dredges, the Magdalene, to show up and assist the other 2 dredges. The Weeks has to go for inspection, has to go up to Norfolk to the shipyard for inspection in July. So that'll just kind of slow things down. And once the dredge is finished with Kildover Hills, the remaining dredges will move on into Southern Shores. The Town of Duck project is currently scheduled to be the final project constructed. Weeks' intentions are to start early enough and to keep enough equipment on site to finish all of the work by the end of August. They realize the schedule may bleed into September, but they really want to try and be done by the end of August. One thing to remember is in 2017, the volume of sand that was placed on the 4 beaches then, that was a bigger project actually. It began in May in Duck and finished around mid-October in Kitty Hawk. So I think Weeks did a project down in Buxton, and they learned a lot about weather on the Outer Banks. And so knowing this, I think they're going to kind of hit this pretty hard compared to what maybe they've done in the past. But this map we'll be able to hopefully put out to the public next week. And I've got some, just for illustration purposes, some things in here to show you that will be updated and be corrected. But this map, it'll show you where the project area is. It'll show and give a description of the 22 project, 894,000 cubic yards. And then it'll break out each one of the 4 zones and tell you how much volume and the purpose behind that volume for the southern, central, and northern beach, as well as the taper area. It'll have a daily progress. So if we start in the southern end of the town, this green bar will show you every 3 or 4 days how much progression they're making up the beach. And it describes the taper area. As you know, our project doesn't just end with sand at a straight line at the northern end of town. It tapers into Duck with about 12 properties, and it's a 1,000-foot taper with 11,200 cubic yards of sand. We have on here the staging area at Trout Run, and that's simply for loading and offloading and loading equipment. And then we've listed the project area from 2017, just to kind of give folks an idea of where that project was. And then I've got listed right now, the project start date is July or early August of 22. That'll change. But we'll try and keep it up to date as much as we possibly can. And then if when folks come on, if they want to get an update, we will mark each update with, we can have pictures, we can put drone footage, we can show them, what's happening at the beach and on this particular day. We can show them how much progress has been made since the last check-in, and then total volume and how much distance they've done. So we'll have, a series of those going up the beach until we get to the project end date sometime in August or September. So this hopefully will give folks anywhere that they are, be it a homeowner or somebody that's coming on vacation, they can try and predict based on how much progress they've made in the last few days, few weeks, where the project may be when they get here. One thing we're trying, and I think most folks will be able to figure out pretty quickly, but one thing we want to try and incorporate in here is if you just were to type in your address of where you're staying, it should be able to take you right to that portion of where they are on the beach. So this is how we plan to keep everyone up to date on the progress of the beach. And like I said, hopefully we'll have this on our website within a week.
Good.
Great.
And
So if all goes well, they don't have storms, they don't have equipment breakdowns, the total time they would be on Southern Shores
be less-
beaches to your best guess?
a month or less.
Month or less, okay.
And that's going to be between the middle of July and early August?
I think so.
Because I've
Yeah.
been getting some calls.
Yeah.
When's going to be the best time to come for vacation here? Do I come early, come late? And I've had to do some dancing.
Yeah, it's a tough call. And the other part of this is they could just as easily, a second or third dredge could just as easily start anywhere along this area. So they could have 2 dredges working at the same time, meeting in the middle or, but again, remember that once they start in Southern Shores, they have to finish in Southern Shores before they go to another town. So that's, when that dredge has to leave to go for whatever reason, it's got to come back to Southern Shores. Thankfully, we don't have a half-built beach for very long.
So the firm construction date is July to August.
July to September. Wouldn't you like to work in those markets?
So I'm guessing the rental companies will know all this information too,
Yes, sir.
so they can tell visitors that, because I remember when they did it the first time at the first 1,000 feet. I mean, I listened to people complain the whole time. Off Ocean View Loop. I mean, they were, I mean, beachgoers, we should have been told. I mean, that was just amazing. Of course, you do tell them and they forget.
Yeah.
That's right. Our goal is to keep this up to date and reliable so that it kind of relieves the property managers of some of that. You know, there's so many phone calls that they can direct them here and hopefully get what they're looking for.
Isn't the county putting up some type of informational like they did before?
They are the
Websites.
more beaches.
Yeah.
More
the-
beaches.
the-
More beaches to love will have kind of if folks go there, it'll have information on all.
Will they be able, would they be able to link from there
Yes,
to
sir.
this or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Cliff?
Just need to get it going.
You don't have an update on our SEPI contractor, do you?
Yes, the February 24th at 5 o'clock in this room, we'll have a public education information meeting where staff from SEPI will be here to share the project, the methodology, what goes into determining this 10-year CIP, how they come up with the pavement condition index, and hopefully soon after that, we'll be going to bid.
Okay. And have you seen them in town yet?
I have not.
Okay.
But they may have already been here doing some work, but they were supposed to schedule last week, but they had some corona, like everyone else, COVID. And I think they're catching up from that.
Yep. Very good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Cliff, very much. General public comment. Do we have anyone sign up? Yes, Wes.
I misspoke earlier. The planning board meeting is February 22nd at 5 PM, not February 15th. So that's February.
February 22nd.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Which is
you.
a Tuesday. Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on. Let's see. Dare County Government Access Committee appointment. It's item 3 in our books. Do we need to talk about this? Is someone going to present this, or do we just need to make a motion to add a member from council?
I think you just have
I'm
to add somebody.
Do we need to talk about this, or we just need to make a motion
We just
to
need-
appoint a member?
I think we just need to make a motion.
Okay, very good. I would like to hear a motion to appoint a member from council to be our Southern Shores rep to the Government Education Access Channels Committee. Anybody want to make a motion?
Do we volunteer?
Who's volunteering?
This guy?
Is there a volunteer? Is the new guy volunteering?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, good.
I would
Mark.
be happy to make a motion. Mark, you have to pronounce
have
your
to make
last.
the motion?
You have to pronounce your last name for me.
I
so I can-
vote. I don't vote yet. Okay. I volunteer to be on the, already got the email.
So the motion
Government
would be,
Education
The Government
Access
Education.
Committee. Okay.
motion would be, we nominate Mark Botanic
But
to be our rep on the Government Education Access Channel Committee. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate it, new guy.
you'll enjoy it. That's Paul.
Under old business, we have added the Mid-Currituck Bridge. Councilmember Sherlock, would
Well, I
you like
just-
to speak?
Well, there's been some publicity about the Mid-Currituck Bridge last week. There was a pretty, thank you. There was a pretty big article in the paper. Now I understand that an appeal has been filed. And I just wondered if Ben had any update on that.
Other than the fact that the appeal's been filed, that's all I know at this point. They were a little bit early. I think they had a little bit longer to file, so they filed a little bit early. It may have been in response to some of the news that had come out. But I think that we're a long way from seeing the end of that
Right.
process.
So this went to federal, the appeal is to the Fourth Circuit? That's what I read. I mean,
Yes,
so
they-
it's moved from state to federal?
No, it was always
Okay,
the current lawsuit has always been a federal
okay.
lawsuit
All
because
right.
it's challenging the federal decision about environmental matters.
Okay.
Are there other lawsuits about the bridge that we haven't discussed here at this council?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Sometimes they grow.
Okay.
By the way, if, I know the article you were talking about in this representative, I think made the statement we were going to have activity at the bridge in 2 years. That same person's going to be speaking at the Boat Club GAM breakfast. So some of us, I know I'll be there. I don't know how many else will be there to question him about that.
And I also contacted his office and asked for an update.
Well, you'll probably get it at the breakfast.
Well, and I believe we're going to have, we did this past town email that went out this past Friday. We had a large part of that email newsletter talking about the bridge, talking about all the elected officials, giving all the content. And we're going to continue that so that everyone in town who gets the email will have that at their fingertips.
Yes.
So please contact your elected officials.
Yes. Thanks very much for including that.
Is there any way that information could be put on our town website without getting into trouble somewhere? So that if they don't, they lose or delete their newsletter, they have another place to go.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thanks, though.
Great.
Good idea, Leo. All good? All right. New business. This is a pretty straightforward one. Budget amendment number 17. I don't even think we need to present it. It's just additional part-time salary in Public Works Department to fund the cost of the need for an increase in the work hours for seasonal part-time position. May I have a motion to approve budget amendment number 17?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Would anyone like to discuss this motion? You ready to vote?
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, guys. Now we have Planning Board Solid Waste Ordinance recommendations. We are very fortunate to have with us tonight our chairperson, the Honorable Andy Ward. Good evening, Andy.
And he's assistant.
Not how honorable, but glad to be here. Thank you all.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Can I put this? Thank you. I would say the genesis of why I'm up here tonight, our Vice Chair, Tony DiBernardo, who's sitting right there, came before the Planning Board, and he brought to our attention what pretty much everybody can recognize. We got a trash problem in Southern Shores. So anyway, he asked if the Planning Board could possibly start reviewing Chapter 26, which is Solid Waste Ordinance, and possibly come up with some ideas to pass on to council on our recommendations on how we could attempt to begin fixing what is sorely needed here in our town. We got a great police department. We got a great fire department. Y'all are spending a ton of money on beach nourishment, which I'm all in favor of, but coming through our town and seeing the mess that starts here at Pelican Watch and goes to the split in the road and beyond. It's our main corridor of town, and it needs some help. And So anyway, the planning board started our discussion at our November meeting. We rolled into more discussion at our December meeting. In January, this past January meeting, Councilwoman Sherlock was in attendance, and we had 5 people that came from outside. We had Monica Thibodeau from Carolina Designs, Mike Stone from Southern Shores Realty, Dan Hardy from Joe Lamb. I can't remember this guy's last name, but he was from Outer Banks Blue, and Pam Marlowe from Waste Management. And we had kind of a back and forth with them. Monica Thibodeau had some great insights on what they do in Duck. So it was a productive meeting, I thought. And in the end, after the meeting was done, we decided on the planning board decided on some suggestive improvements to the solid waste ordinance, chapter 26. So I'm gonna run down. Sheila's got them up on the board. I'm gonna run down real quick what we suggested, and then I've got a few pictures, and we'll just jump back in and look at those pictures. But anyway, starting with the suggested improvements to the solid waste ordinance. Replace should with shall in several areas within the ordinance, i.e. 24-hour rollback. And in parentheses, the TCA would be a town code amendment that we would need to, make for doing anything that rearranged what's there right now. Establish a minimum number of trash and receptacles, recycle receptacles based on advertised occupancy, another TCA. Clear and prominent labeling with arrows towards street on cans and lids showing either trash or recycle. Town code amendment probably needed there again. Require fully functional lid covering entire receptacle, another TCA. And these two things here, I know Chief Cole probably doesn't need any more work, but we just suggested maybe we could get support help from the Public Works in off-season at rollbacks and clearly obvious receptacle mishaps. It happens all the time, and I'm sure they get some of it, but we might need to push for a little bit more of that. Enlisting the police department to help ID excessive offenders, specifically Saturday, Sunday turnover days, using the provided database from the rental manager's contact information. Compile a concise notice to send to all property owners and rental managers of pertinent ordinances and expectations explaining penalties for non-compliance. See section 21-11. That would be probably at the staff level. Create a brief educational plea for tenants' welcome packet. See the requirements for rental managers in the next section to be required by ordinance. That would be a town code amendment with staff's help. And then we added on the possibility of rollout services, dumpster possibilities, and then lastly, to think about beginning to transition towards receptacle continuity. I think Tony said he counted 9 different flavors of garbage receptacles on his street. So we're just trying to make these suggestions, and if there's anything that we can do that will help out in moving this along from a planning board standpoint, we're there. These were some of the suggested requirements possible for rental managers. They were kicking a little bit about any kind of extra work. They're short-staffed, we understand. But this is for the future, and we need to do a better job. But we need to provide They provide info on advertised occupancy. Occupants must be less than or equal to the septic capacity registered with the Dare County Health Department. Provide direct contact, not just their general number, to the head property manager, phone and email on record in a database. Include in tenant's welcome package a brief educational plea, which could be cut and pasted from the town of Southern Shores about trash and recycling, to include: do not overfill container, lids open towards street, no loose or bagged trash recycle outside of receptacles, collection day schedule, rollback within 24 hours. Do not mix trash with recyclables, and do not bag recyclables. So Sheila, if I can get you to just throw up those pictures, I will briefly just speak to what we've got. That's within a stone throw of where we are right now. It's just beyond Pelican Watch. That's, I actually made that can lid up myself. And it was kind of a social experiment, but by God, it worked. And it's still working. It's on my family's, one of my family's properties on Ocean Boulevard, down from Paula's house. And we're getting some stickers, according to Wes. So hopefully that'll be part of the solution. Okay. A classic trash can with no lid or a piece of a lid, a recycling with no telling what's in there, but stuff's on the ground. Okay. This is the large house at Chickhawk intersection. Plenty of cans. Whoop, go back. Keep one more. Yeah.
Plenty of cans.
Plenty of cans overfilled to the hilt. And, okay. I mean, there's 10 cans out there. Okay. This was, that picture, by the way, going back to the house there at Chickhawk Light, was taken the week after Thanksgiving on November 28th. To their credit, they did get the cans pulled back and cleaned up after the trash truck came. But anyway, that was after. This was taken on January the 8th. So those cans sat out there for nearly a week after they were emptied. And, you know, that's something that I think, or we think, that Public Works could get involved with. At the minimum, just get them back off the street. It just looks better. I mean, it's an aesthetic thing. People aren't driving up in the grass to run over those cans, but it looks pretty bad for our town. Okay. And then the ID in the property, if somebody just keeps egregiously violating what's in the ordinance, I mean, I can see that sign going by, and that's where possibly we could involve an officer that might be able to help. And if there's a database with Sun Realty, Southern Shores 162 in there, and they keep being repeat offenders, he's got the capability of picking up the phone and saying, hey, this is Officer whoever from Southern Shores Realty, from Southern Shores, the town of Southern Shores, you're in violation you need to get somebody out there. I mean, it's all hands on deck. It's kind of got to be a holistic approach on how we help this problem out. Okay, Sheila. Another one sat there for a week. Nobody touched it. The real estate company, same company, Sun Realty, and they'll come pick it up if we let them know. There's another one not too far away from Miss Sherlock on the other side of the street.
That one.
Look real good. That's Joe Lamb Realty in the corner. Not to pick on Dan Hardy and his company, but you can see the number of the property when you ride by there. Okay.
It's on the can too.
I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, we got a problem here, folks, and we'll be glad to, I mean, that one right there is the classic. If somebody tossed out a bag of trash, you know, it'd be called littering, but just because they put it on the ground outside the receptacle, there's 8 or 10 bags there, and the animals have already gotten into the bottom of the lower left bag. We can do better, and I think that we need to stiffen up, or the planning board recommends that we need to stiffen up and maybe create some new ordinances that we can hopefully hold the rental property managers' feet to the fire. I'm not here to offer some hardcore suggestions, but if we can look in on some ZTA language that staff might be able to pick in and you know, take off on some of this stuff, I think it would be a great asset. We're not gonna cut it to zero, but we got to do better than where it is right now. Seasonally, it's a nightmare. Pam Marlowe from Waste Management volunteered some information on providing some stickers. Wes is saying that they're kind of balking because we want the nice big ones, and so it may cost us, but we need as a town to try to at least make a stab at making it better. It's the main corridor through our town. It's not everywhere in Southern Shores, but it's certainly visible from Pelican Watch, which is a disaster every Saturday in season. I mean, it's cans everywhere, loose garbage. It's a mess around there. And that was one of the possibilities. We talked about a dumpster in there, but I don't think that's going to work because they're front loading dumpsters. And so I'm not certain about dumpsters, but certainly a rollout service, I think. We're looking into that. Cliff is. And so we're just trying to get the ball rolling. We're going to flop it over to you for a little bit. And if you want us to jump back in and review any town code language, amendment language in the future to stiffen up, and hopefully we can work together and do a little bit better job than where it's at right now. That's all I've got. Wes, have you got anything sticker-wise? Do they know about what we're working on?
Mhm.
Working on getting stickers.
Yeah.
And got one quote from Pam with Base Postal, and she's getting another quote from another company to see what those numbers are there.
And roll back, you still, yeah, get the quote. Okay, well, thank y'all.
Thanks, Andy. Anybody
got
have any questions for Andy?
The chief does.
So this is an Ocean Boulevard problem.
By and large, I would say it is, which would help us.
No.
I mean, I
In the-
see
in
the
the-
trash all the time in the summertime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Getting these people to, I mean, I saw do not bag recyclables. Most people are going to bag the
No.
recyclables because it's easy to take it out. They're going
Yeah.
to not take their trash can out. I think we need to get the rental companies together here.
Well,
Yeah,
And in a meeting, I mean, seriously, at
Yeah,
least
oh.
on Ocean Boulevard.
absolutely.
And it's their responsibility. I don't think the police should be out there.
No, I'm
looking
not
at that kind of
advocating that
stuff.
at all.
I don't see that. I mean,
They got enough to do on weekends,
right,
but
but I think the rental companies have a responsibility here. Somehow with their tenants. I mean, they charge a deposit right
Sure.
now for them renting. Maybe there's a way
Well,
that they can charge for that.
Actually,
Just a
Dan-
thought.
What-
I'll be happy to work on it.
What
ahead.
reaction did you get from the
Yeah.
property people that were attending when you
You know,
discussed this?
I would say by and large, they were receptive to some suggestions that we had. There was some pushback, of course, but Dan Hardy from Joland Real Estate said he would not be opposed to having the town charge a surcharge for trash. Situations that might possibly pay for rollback or he lives here, as does Mike Stone. And I mean, this is their town too. But they all complain that they don't have enough people to do what they're doing right now. And any extra work would be hard on them, which I understand that now, but now it ain't gonna always be like this. So.
Well, so I think also you're looking at the property managers, but I think the owners need to play a role in this as well, because
Yeah.
if they dictate this to the property managers, it'll happen.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's just a slap on the fingers.
Yeah.
But the question I got is, does this also would apply town-wide? Because there are some areas in the town, the residents are violating it too. They fill things up, they don't replace the lids, and
Yeah.
and I know I roll back because I walk early in the morning after they've gone through, and I've rolled ones back. I pulled one out of the road the other day after all the wind, and the lid was beat up.
Sure.
And the question I got is, rather than replacing the whole can, is there a place that lids can be acquired and they can put them on there?
Yeah. I mean, Southern Shores Civic Association advertises.
That's for axles and
Yeah.
and wheels. And I did that for my neighbor because damn trash can fell over on my yard. And I'm not going into that part of it, but you don't have time to listen to that. But I did. The companies in Arizona, very easy to deal with. Called him and he says, send me an email. And I said, well, what about, how do you want me to pay? He says, well, just here's the cost, send me a check.
Yeah.
And I got the wheels in about 3 days and had them on and fixed.
Anything we can do to stiffen up what you shall do to get your garbage picked up would be, you don't have a lid, we don't pick your garbage up or your recycling. I mean, that's extreme.
It's extreme, and I think we'd have some pushback.
How are we gonna?
That's why my question is, how are we going to enforce some of this stuff?
Once again, and Elizabeth's heard me say this, if it's not in there as an ordinance, how are we going to enforce it?
Yeah, I know that, but
We might not enforce it if it is in there, but at least we can fall back and say, this is in our town code and you're in violation of it, fix it.
I know I had a conversation with Tim Cafferty, OBX Blue. He does go around and has 2 vehicles, he said, and picks up behind. But I don't know. I don't think the others have gone to that.
Yeah.
So I know we got to tighten it up because I walk. It's not as bad as it had been when the county was picking up. On Monday morning, it looked like a war zone coming through there. And I picked up stuff. I still do pick up stuff.
The cans stay out there. The recycling are out there. The cleaning crews put them out on Saturday. Garbage and recycling. So recycling, we've got cans out there for basically the whole week.
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen them here. I pull them off to the other side of the road.
Roll back sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So we'll just.
If we can pursue it.
Yeah.
I attended the planning board
Yeah.
meeting and I thought it was very interesting. I guess before I would want to see our public works people and particularly our policemen dealing with the trash, because that's an expense to the town. I think that expense needs to go to the people who are renting these houses. These houses are renting $10,000, $25,000 a week. So for this town to pay for picking up their trash, are really tolerating looking at it, I think is just beyond the pale.
Yeah.
I've rented properties in other resort areas and they fine you
Yeah.
if you don't, if you don't adhere to their requirements, like you say, you pay a deposit and they keep part of your money. So I agree, Andy, it looks terrible. I live in the middle of it. My husband and I were like Leo, we're picking up trash cans all the time. But this is this is a business that people are running. I've rented property a long time. It's a business. This is a business expense and they need to be responsible. And I think I guess you can't find the rental companies, but finding the property.
Yeah, the property
owners
owner.
would be the way to do it. The other thing I would say, the first time I heard dumpsters, I had a real negative reaction to that.
Yeah, I do too.
But after driving around to some of the other large homes, particularly in Kill Devil Hills, really a dumpster looks much better than 8 to 10 trash cans out there. And you don't have things blowing all over. So I'm not as negative about that. But I would be all for fining homeowners, making it clear to them that they have a duty to work it out to get these cans back from the street within 24 hours. And if they don't, if our people have to do anything with it, then I think we need to be reimbursed.
Well, I think it's going to take some town code amendment language in there to express what you all feel is important. We've kind of suggested stuff. I didn't mean to step on Chief Cole's responsibilities, but I mean, we were just hunting and pecking all over the place. So
Maybe Tony remembers, some years ago, we attempted this bringing back, finding people. They didn't roll them back in 24 hours. And I don't know if you remember that. Oh, and well, it worked to a degree, but then it got withdrawn because there was a lot of pushback from it.
Yeah.
And that's why it got there, but then it didn't stay there.
But once again, I mean, it's in the ordinance as you should,
Change
rather
it
than
to
shall.
Right.
And so if it shall, at least we can write a letter and go, there's an ordinance here, folks. You got your first warning, second warning. But if that ordinance is not in there, then we don't have any recourse other than
Well, I
say, well, you
understand.
should.
I understand. I'm trying to think about the unintended consequences
Yeah.
from a resident's standpoint. This out here is a different animal.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because you have, the homeowner is, or the property owner is getting an income.
Yeah.
And that's part of his cost to do, or their cost of doing business. But, a resident, some of them are just as fragrant about it.
Yeah, I would agree. But
Matter of fact, I know one this morning, this morning, the recycle. Wait, they just bought the house. It was sitting there. I know they're gone and won't be back. So I rolled it back for them.
yeah.
So I would just like to make a suggestion in the interest of, since this is a town code amendment, it doesn't have to go to the planning board first, right? So in terms of being efficient, in terms of being legal, what do we have the legal authority to require and not require? To maybe start the update to the town code amendment with staff and then go to the planning board? Doesn't have to go to the
If
planning
these are
board.
planning board recommendations, I mean, they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
They
I
could be
think,
implemented in TCA. I mean, you got a procedural thing where there's the written rules and then there's policy stuff. And most of what we're looking at here is policy, which needs to be with the town manager, public works, and deputy manager.
right.
So I mean, we can ask them to implement some of these items into the TCA and bring it to us and we can vote on it.
So that's what in the issue, just again, to be efficient, it seems like we should put this in the hands of staff. Make sure we have the proper legal authority to whatever, whatever we end up with in the ordinance, so that it is enforceable. And I do believe that it is ultimately the property owner's responsibility.
Yeah.
We also can do some of these other policy things, as Matt said, in terms of more education, more communication with our property manager partners in the area. And I think we should do that. So I think it's a great opportunity. I do want to take the opportunity to thank Tony for bringing this to our attention, to getting this out. And the time that you guys on the planning board have spent is very well spent time. And yeah, it's a problem that needs to be addressed. So
Yeah. So what
I
you're,
totally agree.
what you're saying is to do a TCA then is, I mean, does it come to us first?
It doesn't have to.
It does not.
It doesn't have to,
Well, Cliff
okay.
is going to help us out.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I was hopefully gonna ask him a question or two.
My recommendation would be that staff draft something.
Staff needs to draft a
Okay.
TCA, yeah,
Mhm.
okay. I'm
Okay,
sorry, do
so
you
we
want to
don't
ask a
need
question
to
of?
get-
I was gonna ask Cliff a question if I had a
Okay.
chance, but I
It's-
don't want to bug him.
Yeah, well,
Andy, are you-
while he's discussing, one other
Right, right.
One other point, I know it says do not bag recyclables. The challenge I got there is shredded material. And I bag mine, it's in a clear bag.
Yeah.
And I do it because I don't want that small little dinky paper flying all over the neighborhood.
I think-
So is there some way to define that differently or?
You remember with our recycling contract, they've got a certain rejection amount, and we have not exceeded that rejection. So, I mean, I would identify that as not necessarily a problem.
No,
at the moment.
but
I mean, it's still,
we put it in
they
here.
request for it not to be bagged because those bags screw up their machines, but like, I mean, I guess they're tearing. yours open.
Pam Marlowe, I believe, said that paper bag was okay.
No.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can bag it all. Yeah. So what's the chances of people putting?
Because I'm using this, the suggested bag from Staples when I got my shredder.
Hmm.
And it's a clear, very thin. I mean, it doesn't take much and you destroy the bag.
Uh-huh.
They're not processing our recyclings. They're taking them to a processing facility that's a third party, and they're not rejecting enough of it for us to have, because they actually can bill us if they reject
Yeah.
a certain amount.
Yeah,
We have
it's
not
going
crossed
to
that threshold
Roanoke.
yet.
And quite possibly, I mean, Paula heard the presentation by the property managers and owners and Pam Marlowe, but you might want to have them, involved in your discussions too. But we got good conversation out of them and they were helpful, I thought.
I think that's a good idea to get them.
Yeah, well,
To interface with staff. What does enforcement look like? Let's say these TCA changes are made, Cliff, and then I mean, what does a fine look like? How do we collect? Do we put liens on property? I mean, let's go down this road. I would love to hear the
Right
manager
down the
or the
hole.
attorney.
Linda Burrick, I ask everybody to come back from the planning board with 5 key suggestions, and we'd compile them into a list. And we overlapped on a lot. Linda must have heard me say 55. But she had some good suggestions about tiers of
Violation.
violation fines. So I don't know. I mean, it's enforcement. If it's not in there and it doesn't say shall, then you'll never be able to enforce it. So at least a well-placed letter to the property manager and to the owner saying, hey, we got a problem here, folks. You keep doing the same thing over and over again. And this is the ordinance here. Then, we take it a step farther if they just thumb their nose. So that's what you all are going to have to work out.
Which none of those clowns will do.
Is there any way to get recycled back on Monday? I mean, cans are out all week. You're exactly right. And they put them out on Saturday.
That's a big problem.
Anybody else have anything?
In a vacation.
Thank you, guys.
It's not going
Thank
to
you.
roll it out.
Thank
We
you much.
appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
With
Yeah.
Bay picking up both, they don't
Yeah.
have the manpower or the resources to do both in the same day. And to speak to the enforcement part of it, that in order for us to issue a citation for someone in violation of their cart being rolled out too soon or too late, we'd have to cite that, and it would not need to be a police officer. It would need to be a code enforcement officer that would likely have to work on a Saturday. And they'd have to issue a warning citation, and they'd have to give a certain amount of time for that violation to be remedied. Am I saying it right so far? So if we were to issue, if the homeowner's in Virginia somewhere, we'd issue the letter to the homeowner, we go out in the mail on Monday, chances are that the issue's been, the violation's been taken care of possibly by the time they get the letter. So enforcement of this ordinance is very difficult. Now, we may be able to reword some of our citation language, but usually you have to give a warning. You have to give time for them to remedy it. And I don't know if the clock starts over every single time, but it's difficult at best to enforce that.
Because of the option to remedy it, yeah. So,
I don't know.
did you,
It's intermittent, small situations like that are constantly problematic to enforce because ultimately the cost to collect often exceeds the amount of the fine, or you run into somebody who they're getting $25,000 a week. How much are you going to fine them before they care? A number of them may just pay the fine because it's easier to pay the fine than to leave the trash there. So, and then you're going to balance the code enforcement officer cost versus is it easier to pay somebody to go and actually fix the problem?
Mm-hmm.
So, but from a enforcement perspective, the legal end of it gets complicated and hard because the easiest things to enforce are big, complicated things that are expensive that don't move easily, can't be fixed easily. The hardest thing to deal with is when somebody puts something out and you say, take it up, and they take it up, and then they put it back, and then they leave it for an extra day, and you got to have somebody tracking that, it's possible, but it is in the
more of a fee for service model, and there's obviously labor implications to this, but if we don't cite them, we just roll the cans back, and then they get a bill.
Yep.
Is that a possibility legally?
It's been done in other jurisdictions.
Yeah, it's
Does
going
it
to
work?
It's going to be more complicated to do it in one area and not across town.
Well, I mean, it would be across town.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have to be for everybody.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, but then you're just, even then, I'm not sure, are you charging a monthly trash fee right now, or is it just built into their tax cost?
Built into
So
the taxes.
I think it's just another increase in the tax. Ultimately,
The difficulty
you
is
have to have,
collecting.
you have to have,
The difficulty is collecting.
We don't have a mechanism.
you
to
probably have to have particular authority to have a fee outside of the taxes. And that authority might exist for sanitary stuff. I don't know. I haven't dealt with that. But if you look back to like the concept of collecting a fee from the people who are along the canals, that came around 10 years ago or so. And you had to go to the legislature and get special authority to deal with that. So that might be something that could arise here, but it's also a utility. So there may be some provisions in the general statutes that allow you to collect that outside of taxes.
So I'm hearing, I think, a consensus from this council that we would like staff to spend some time working on these text code amendments as it relates to solid waste and come back to us at some future date. Is that?
The additions to that is, I mean, I think some of these suggestions I would be fine with. I mean, I don't quite understand the link between advertised occupancy and actual occupancy. Occupancy is occupancy, in my mind. It should be one number, one way or the other. If your septic permits this much, then that's the occupancy of the structure. But the other clear and prominent labeling, I mean, that's fine. And requiring functional lid, all those are good recommendations to implement. The question is how to go from after that, once it's in place. But I would engage the stakeholders, property manager, which you already have. I'm looking at Wes because I can't see Cliff. But I mean, they're the people that are really in the trenches. I mean, they've got the cleaners, they roll it out. A lot of these homes have a full service going once a week, midweek, that might be available to pull it back if there was some kind of incentive financially for that. Try to figure something out like that. But that's more of a policy thing.
Yeah.
Town code amendment.
Okay,
Are
moving along.
we moving on and we're clear? We're good? Chief? Sorry. Thank you.
Couple of things. Obviously, we don't want to be the garbage police. With all due respect, it is a code enforcement issue as far as I'm concerned. And as far as Public Works, if you're going to have any paid staff that's going to roll back without billing the other residents, I want to get on the list, and I expect to be rolled back too as a taxpayer. As far as the police department, we will, and we have in the past, when the officers have time, when they drive by Ocean Boulevard or wherever it happens to be, if the cans are overstuffed and they're tipped over, or we got a storm coming or a nor'easter, we call town hall, talk to Cynthia, and then it's their responsibility. They get up with, and we give them the address, and we give them the rental number and a rental agency, and then they call the rental agency and put them on notice that they've got cans that are overflowing, those types of things. The dumpsters, I'm not sure what their plan is, but I don't know how many of you remember what the dumpsters looked like. Second year here, they had dumpsters outside of the fence, behind the fire station, outside of the fence at Public Works. I was directed to have officers sit there on the weekend because people were dumping it. There were people from all over Dare County dumping into two little dumpsters that were overflowed. There were mattresses, there was food, there was garbage everywhere. And I said, you solve the problem by getting rid of the dumpsters. Hello? Because we didn't have the time, or we had even less manpower back then. So they finally removed the dumpsters. We sat there for a couple of weeks because people still, even without the dumpsters, decided they would dump stuff. But that was what people were doing, is if the garbage cans at the rental houses were full, they would dump them in those dumpsters. So that's just a heads up. I'm just going to tell you what they did back home, and I know it's a little different than it is here. We literally had code enforcement. When the lawn went to a certain height, I believe it was like 13 inches, they literally would go out and measure it. But Public Works mowed it. And I'll tell you what, per hour, they attached, we were fortunate, we had a water bills because we had our own water system. And they just attached that to the water bill, and they had to pay it. If they didn't, shut the water off. And it got their attention real quick. And they found out that it was a lot cheaper to have your neighborhood high school boy or girl mow it for a lot cheaper than what the town mowed it for. So I appreciate that, and I just wanted to go on record that we really don't want to. We'll do what we can, but thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. The next item of business is Town Code Amendment 2201, Emergency Management, Chapter 12. Didn't staff want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'll just briefly, I wanted to let you know how this came about. You remember a few months back, staff went through a process to kind of update our emergency management plan. As part of that, we realized that Chapter 12 had some references to general statutes that have been repealed. So in an attempt to bring our chapter in relevance with the authority that the general statutes grant, we made a few other changes as well. So we condensed part of this. We tried to make it more inclusive. Instead of we added a definition for a state of emergency and not just focus on disaster. But you'll see one of the big changes under 12.4. It moves the administration of the emergency plan underneath the town manager. Previously, the town council was directing the administration for events. Town council was also appointing a deputy town manager. This puts that responsibility under the town manager as well. It adds a requirement, a responsibility to the town manager's position to serve as the designated point person for contact at the Dare County Emergency Operations Center. If you look, Article 2, State of Emergency, that's probably where the biggest change was made. There were several sections under Article 2 that were all just kind of condensed under the definition of a state of emergency. and it added the authority that the mayor has to declare a state of emergency. Instead of having a separate section for each add-on, curfew, no alcohol, no travel, it's all listed under the state of emergency now. And then it references when the nature of the emergency requires the mayor will represent the town as a senior leader. That's the new word out of the lawsuit settlement. Instead of control group, it's now the mayor's a senior leader, not a member of the control group. So that's referenced. And then finally, under Article 3, we retitled the hurricane and storm reconstruction and redevelopment to reconstruction and redevelopment following a townwide emergency declaration. There were some changes made there as well. There were some references to positions that weren't quite right, departments that weren't quite right, so we retitled those. We retitled or removed when a declaration of a building moratorium is called into place. Really, it's less criteria, but it still gives the authority to declare a moratorium. But we did remove the ability to revoke permits that were issued before a declaration. So before, under the reconstruction, if you had a building permit and we declared a moratorium, we would take the building permit. I don't think that's permissible. If you're issued a building permit, I don't think we can revoke it. So we removed that. And under the task force, we labeled a couple of positions differently. Instead of 2 elected officials, we said the mayor and mayor pro tem or other elected official. Instead of 2 planning board members, we said planning board chair and vice chair. We removed a member of the board of adjustment because that's typically, it is planning board.
It is.
And instead of appointing let me one more back up. The reconstruction task force was tasked with undertaking a process to look at the enhancement of local recreational facilities, enhancement of restoration and natural ecosystems. It just didn't seem to fit what you want a reconstruction task force to be looking at when you've had a disaster, you've declared a moratorium. Probably not, their focus shouldn't be on, well, let's improve this recreation facility. So we removed that. And instead of appointing the reconstruction task force annually, we listed it as needed. If these positions don't change, the people in these positions don't change. That's why we added mayor pro tem. That seat will be there and we don't have to change with each change in person. That is that in a nutshell.
Looks like some good work, cleaning things up, making it more clear, making it easier to implement. Thank you.
I had a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Cliff, under 12-68, hurricane and storm reconstruction. Under B, declaration of a building moratorium. I'm just curious why 1 and 2 were struck. 1 is the town is struck by a hurricane of force equal to or greater than 4, or 2, the town is declared a disaster area by either the governor or the president of the United States.
We felt like under number 3 and 4 there should be numbered 1 and 2. That those two, if we had a hurricane that destroyed 25 or more structures, if we have had hurricanes and floods greater, hurricanes that are a 4 where we didn't have, well, not a 4, but we've had emergency declarations where we hadn't had a building moratorium in a very long time, and we didn't want to automatically declare a building moratorium unless the impacts of the event were strong enough. And then again, we could be declared disaster by the governor or the state and not need to put the brakes on.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so that's why we took those 2
Okay,
out.
and 4 gives the mayor or the mayor pro tem kind of a lot of wiggle room in terms of declaring a moratorium, which I don't think is a bad thing.
And I think that statute allows that.
Okay.
Yeah, general statute 160.
Any other questions for Cliff?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
No, go ahead, fire away.
I actually read all this. Under that same section, 12-68C, moratoriums, okay, after the initial building moratorium, then, no, it says the last sentence, no, under A, destroyed structure moratorium. No building permit shall be issued within 30 days following the expiration of the initial moratorium for the replacement of any structure. I just wondered why would you wait 30 days?
I think, and Wes might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but FEMA may not allow, there may be it couldn't go back as built in the same location that it was. If it was in a certain flood zone, then it may not qualify to be rebuilt in the same location. So, if a structure's damage greater than 50% and it's in a certain zone, then it may not be able to be rebuilt as it was without being elevated or some other flood protection.
It's also subject to other agency oversight. If it breaks that 50% threshold, there are other agencies that have to be involved.
It may not meet the setback if it's an oceanfront home where it sits. The new setback may apply, and
There's health department septic issues potentially.
I'd be curious if that is from FEMA, like if it's supposed to buy them time to get people on the ground and assess what's going on. Because, I mean, you wouldn't issue a permit if it wasn't going to, if it crossed that 50%. It's able to.
Well, I would say also that, I mean, if we have a moratorium and we're impacted by events such as this, the 30 days gives us enough time to catch up because everybody, when we have the moratorium, everybody's going to want their permanent ones.
Yeah.
So that gives us time as well as staff.
triage.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, and I perused it, I didn't read it. Do you have the ability to waive building permits post-storm, which has been done in the past to expedite? Okay.
Yes. We've done that historically. We've waived permits.
How'd you arrive at 25 structures?
That's a great question.
I'm just curious.
One I was
What's the
hoping you
magic of
wouldn't ask.
25?
because-
I mean,
Less than 50.
25 oceanfront, less than 50, yeah.
FEMA made you do it.
It seems like an arbitrary number, that's why
It was there before, and
okay.
I went with it. But you're right. I don't have an answer. Why
There's still the
25?
trigger, if it's less than 25 and there's still life safety or services,
Yeah.
the mayor
Still
has the
got that
jurisdiction to
To do that, yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
It takes a little bit of authority away from the planning code department. They got to reach 25 before they can flex their muscle. I like it.
That's a quota.
Any other questions for Cliff?
Ms. Sherlock,
I'm done.
what's your favorite part?
Of this?
Yeah.
We make a motion.
The motion right now.
Thank you, Cliff. Can I have a motion to approve the amendments to Chapter 12 as presented?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. General public comment? Anyone sign up for general public comment? Anyone sitting here with us want to do a general public comment? No. Council business. When do we meet again, Cliff?
We don't have a need for a mid-month meeting.
Okay. So our next meeting is sometime in March. Anybody know the date? Sheila?
First Tuesday in March.
First Tuesday, up,
Still got
March 1st. Okay. Council comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Newest member, Mark. I'll stop saying that.
I thought there was a great conversation on the trash. And it is a problem. I mean, it's an image issue for the town. There's no question, driving down Ocean Boulevard, I mean, I've said to myself, golly, what pigs. I think that a lot of things, I think recycle has changed a lot. Recycle is picked up once a week, trash is picked up twice a week. I'm belaboring this issue. I think we need to have a full on, I know you guys, I applaud you for taking it up and doing it because it is ugly. And I'm curious what Duck does, because I don't see it up there near as much. When I drive through there on Saturday. But Saturday is when if people don't put the trash out on Friday during the summer, they forget to do it. The renters do. And that's why it's just such a mess on Saturday when they're leaving. So I think a rich discussion and what we can do to get that a lot better, because it does reflect badly on the town. I really think it does. And I've got a neighbor that never rolls his trash can back, and if we find him, I do not want to be on this council.
Thank you, Mark. Leah?
All right.
Well, I'll update you on the tourism board. We've got a new group of officers. The chair is Tim Cafferty. He's with OBX Blue. Our vice chair is Monica Thibodeau, who we all know from Duck. The treasurer is Irv Bateman. Assistant treasurer is Ivy Ingram. And the secretary is Jamie Chisholm, and she's over here at Hilton Gardens. Although we had 17 months of constant growth. Well, guess what? November, we went in the growth stopped. Yeah, November was down 33% in occupancy. Although current year to date is still strong at a plus 33. So a little bit of adjustment may be coming. Although they tell us the property owners, our managers tell us they've got plenty of activity. OBX Blue said he was good up till sometime late August. It's tapered off on him. Meal collections, November, we did well. We were up 8% there. Our current year to date is up 51%. So when you go back to 2019 on meals, we were at 19,796,000, and in 2021 we're at 29. So there's a 10 million swing there. So for the food people, that's great. And that's all I got.
Thanks, Leah. Paul?
Good, thank you.
Very much. I want to thank our newest member as well. Look, last time, not going to say anymore. Thanks, Mark, for joining us up here. Thank you all for coming tonight. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
See you next time.
It's kind of assumed.
Consensus
Consensus.